Hello everybody. Today's episode is going to be a sort of mailbag episode. I had went on Twitter a couple weeks ago and asked people if they had any questions about food, cooking, or nutrition, and a few people came back to me with some questions. So I'm going to do a series of mailbag questions. Today's episode is going to be about the best ways to cook fish or seafood for an inexperienced cook. So let's get started. Today's question comes from Mikey fucking Two Belts at the BlackUp87 on Twitter. Mikey asks, what kind of fish and what type of preparation do you recommend for someone who has very little experience working with seafood? This one's pretty easy. I would suggest that if you're starting off cooking seafood, you pick a firm fish that isn't going to cook super fast so that you can learn how quickly fish can cook, because if you have a very thin fillet of something and too high a heat, you can burn it and overcook it pretty easily. So I'm gonna say one of the fishes that you could start with is tilapia, which is a medium firm fish. The one that I suggest the most highly is cod, because cod is a firm fish that is mild in flavor, which can be helpful for those who are new to consuming seafood, or those who find seafood a little off-putting but would like to sort of develop a taste for it. Now, one of the reasons cod is so good is because it's a very mild flavor and it is adaptable to anything you want to do with it. So it can be prepared very simply and served with a simple red or white sauce, like a bechamel or a basic sauce that has been infused or has had herbs added to it. The possibilities are really endless on what you could do with cod. It pairs really well with anything, including like diced tomatoes, definitely garlic, definitely onion, definitely butter. So I thought today would be fun to make a very simple pan-seared cod with a fine brunoise of garlic and onions. So we're gonna get started on that. Let's hit the countertop. I generally purchase my fish pre-packaged like this, and I know that the plastic can be a bit wasteful, but if I get a larger fillet of fish and then cut it down into portion sizes and then wrap it myself, it is more susceptible to freezer burn much more quickly. So it's nice, especially if you are just one or two people in your household, it's nice to get your fish prepackaged like this. The consumption of fish has been linked to the reduction of the risk of heart disease, and has also been linked to the decrease in depression, risk of stroke, and mental decline related to aging. Fish is also a low-fat source of protein. We've got about 2 tablespoons of butter, some finely chopped brunoise garlic, and some fine brunoise white onion. Things you need to know when you're buying fish. The first one is the country of origin, and then farm or wild. And then there's also eco concerns and concerns about fish fraud. Go into the links and check out the buying fish what you need to know.
First add the brunoise onions, and then add the garlic. Make sure to stir the onions and garlic so they don't stick to the pan.
Don't forget to season your fish before you put it in the pan. It just needs a little salt on either side. Optionally, you could put pepper on it. I'm gonna skip pepper today because traditionally you use a white pepper, and I don't think I have white pepper, and it's just not something I want to eat today, which is what I'm gonna do with this one. It's done, is eat it. So let's season that cod and get it in the pan. As with all fish, be careful about overconsumption, as it contains high levels of mercury. And if you're pregnant, you probably shouldn't consume fish. Or if you're trying to get pregnant, you should try to reduce your consumption of fish or eliminate fish. I encourage you, if you don't know much about the risk of fish consumption and mercury, to visit that link.
You want to start with what appears to be the top of the fish. As you can see, this side is flat and that's the bottom. The first side you want to put in the pan is always the top of the fillet.
If you saw my last video, this is a brand new stove, and I haven't used a like a beast of a gas stove in a long time. I had a gas stove in my apartment in LA before I closed it up and moved all my stuff out. And it just wasn't as big or powerful as this stove. This stove comes with a bunch of bells and whistles. So I'm hoping that I don't overcook this fish today, because even on a very, very low temperature on this one specific burner, it seems to be cooking way, way hot. Luckily with gas, you have much more control over the temperature, so I've turned it way down. But you want to keep that in mind if you're cooking on an electric stove. You want to make sure that you're washing it really well so that you don't burn it, and that you can remove the pan from the coils or the top before it starts to get too hot. So let's see if I can cook this fish properly today on this brand new stovetop.
As you can see, my onions are getting quite brown, so I'm going to push them into a pile to reduce the surface exposure so they don't get quite as brown. You can see it's starting to get flaky, but that's not enough, so I'm going to flip it back over. You can see it's starting to get flaky, and that's what you want. If I were cooking this in a cast iron pan right now, I'd probably turn the heat off, as the heat being held by the cast iron pan would finish the cooking process at this point. I turned the temperature down a bit to prevent burning the onions. If your onions start getting too brown, just scoop them up and put them on top of the fish in order to protect them from the heat. Then we'll just transfer it to a plate.
You could garnish this with green onions, scallions, any number of herbs and spices. I have decided today to use some black sesame seeds just because I like how they look. And there you have, it's a simple pan-seared cod with butter and a brunoise of onions and garlic sprinkled with black sesame seeds. So let's give this a taste. So let's give this a taste and see if it got cooked properly. So good. Now, alternatively, I could have thrown a little whipping cream there at the end and made it more of a creamy butter sauce. But I decided to keep it simple because the whole point of this was to show you the simplest way to prepare fish or seafood if you don't have any experience. I hope this answered your question, Mikey. I highly encourage everybody to try it out. Super simple. If you've never cooked fish before, cod is a very forgiving fish, so that's good. It's very adaptable to other flavors. If you have any questions about food or cooking and nutrition, I do intend to do a few more of these episodes until the end of the year, which is only a couple weeks, but I do have some time to devote to making some extra videos. So if you have any questions about food, cooking, and nutrition, please drop them down in the comment section or find me on Twitter and ask me there, and I will see what I can do to try to answer your questions. Thank you for watching my video today, and as always, have a wonderful day.